Crime, Wine, and Chaos contains adult language and graphic content. Listener discretion is advised.
Today is the first day of the rest of our lives, Chaos Kids. I'm Naomi.
Ooh, I'm Amber, and this is Crime, Wine, and Chaos.
Hey, sissy. How's it going?
Hey, sister. Good. How is you?
I'm feeling a little woo because the young adults that live with me left early this morning, and they will be out of town for the next 2 weeks, and I will have the apartment to myself, like olden times.
The good old days. 2 weeks.
2 weeks. They're going to visiting. So
wow.
They won't be back until the end of the month.
Good for
I feel
you.
a little weird though. I was telling a friend of mine this morning, like, if I got used to them being here after I'd gotten used to living alone for 3 years.
Right.
And now they're gone and it's weird again.
Oh, like, is it just like weirdly quiet?
It's weirdly quiet. I mean, and not that they're loud or anything. It's just, I don't know. It's weird. And I got to like walk around the house naked already. It's,
Love that journey for you.
Right. How about you? What's going on with you?
Well, nothing that exciting. Jesus.
You're not walking around your house naked? I don't understand.
Sometimes when I'm here by myself, but we've got ring cams like inside, and knowing me, I would
So you're
forget.
always putting on a show when you do.
Yeah, it would go horribly wrong. Yeah. Just over here with my kittens. Got the first one successfully through surgery so that I don't have more kittens.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And that was an adventure, all they want to do is play, and if ever I needed evidence that these two really can't ever be separated, I have it now, because we kept them separate so that Jack could heal, and Tora just sat downstairs and cried.
Oh,
yeah. So then
we talked about this. We talked about this a little bit ago.
I ended up borrowing the little cat jail thing from cousin Jeremy and got Jack set up in that, and they played with each other through the little hole in the tent, and that seemed to satisfy them.
Oh my God. I mean, that's big excitement. It's big excitement at your house.
God. So that's what's happening at my house. Yeah.
What are you drinking today, sis?
Thank you for asking. I polished off the creepy wine, the Knock Knock.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So, and then I realized in looking through my wine fridge that I had 2 more bottles of that. It tastes good. It's just real creepy.
Can you just cover the label? Just cover the label. It's fine.
Probably. Yeah. With like who's there.
Yeah. I feel like you have some new Chaos Kids Club members to announce.
We've got 2 new Chaos Kid Clubs members. Kid Clubs members. That's too many. We have Jill P.
What's up, Jill? Welcome.
You down with Jill P. And we have Nurta A.
Hi, Nurta. Welcome to the club. It's so exciting. 2 new Kids Club members.
Shit. Look at us. Kids Club squared. That's us.
Heck yeah. Well, sister, you told me that you had, I think the word you used was gruesome for your crime today. So let's just get right into that.
Thank you. I mean, it was one of those where it just progressively got more gruesome, and it was too late to turn back. So
yeah.
I
know the too late to turn back thing for sure.
Yeah. God. Okay. So this is gruesome. We are going to La Place, Louisiana, which is actually spelled like La Place. It's 25 miles west of New Orleans on the southeastern banks of the Mississippi River. And it is October 2020. And we are talking about 31-year-old Elizabeth Tornabene.
Okay.
She is a tattoo artist and works at a local tattoo and piercing shop. Her friends and family describe her as free-spirited. She is extremely creative and has been commissioned to do several large murals and also does sculpting. She sculpts masks in her spare time. Mm-hmm.
And murals is like a whole other thing beyond tattooing. I mean, that is a skill set that is so incredible to me.
Oh, I know. I, for a while there, wanted to do a mural on the wall in my condo before I went with the shiplap. I wanted just like this crazy mural, but like, who do I know that just does that?
Right. Like, you really need to know someone, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Do a mural.
Yeah, I'm up there with my stencils, just freestyling it. No, let's not do that. So Elizabeth went by the name of Buttons, nickname.
Oh my God, stop it.
Oh my God.
Buttons? What is she? Is she pocket size?
I don't know where Buttons came from. Is she pocket size? Oh my God. Not like you. We need a nickname for you that's a pocket size. Like fun size.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. She had been a talented artist since the age of 6. And she also has had a younger sister, Hattie, who she absolutely loved and adored. And home life was pretty rough for Hattie. So in late 2019, Hattie moved in with Elizabeth, and Elizabeth kind of took on the role of guardian, and she took it really seriously.
How old were Elizabeth and Hattie by then?
Elizabeth is 31 and Hattie was 15.
Oh, they were very distant in age. Okay.
Yeah. So Hattie was described as goofy, and she was also quite the artist. She started going to work with Elizabeth so that she could watch and learn. And she also wanted to be an artist one day. And they had plans for Hattie to be like her apprentice as soon as she was old enough.
By the way, Hattie is the cutest fucking name.
So cute.
I love it so much.
I do too. Hattie.
I also love like 2 badass chick sister artists and tattooists. Like that's so cool.
I know. So cool. Can you hear that?
I hear nothing.
Okay. I hope the recording doesn't pick it up. I had to leave the window open. Otherwise, I'm afraid that I might actually RIP. It's that.
No, I hear it's hot out there.
Stop it in your cave. It is hot out here.
As she like wipes the sweat off her upper lip.
Oh my God. I'm so gross. Everything is gross. Okay. So in February of 2020, Elizabeth went to a heavy metal concert with some of her friends, and the main act was Aubrey Mort, which was a really well-known band in Louisiana.
Okay.
And this is where she met 23-year-old Oscar Urias. He had long, dark black hair and was like wearing his heavy metal garb, costumes, whatever. Mm-hmm. The two hit it off and decided to keep in touch after the show. And by May, Elizabeth and Oscar were dating. She made it Facebook official.
Oh, uh-oh. I mean, that's always the death knell.
What? Why?
You don't ever make it Facebook official. Like, no.
Why?
You don't make announcements because that's the beginning of the end.
Oh, shit. How long does the end take? I've been Facebook official for a while. Oh my God.
I mean, there's the exception that proves the rule. You know what I mean?
Well, hopefully that's me. Otherwise, I don't know. Mm-hmm. So Elizabeth's dad said that she seemed really at peace with Oscar. She told him that he was always such a gentleman and was really good to her. And her dad said that he felt like he could finally relax a little bit, seeing Elizabeth with a good job and a healthy relationship and really caring well for Hattie. Like she was just crushing it at adulting, you know?
So I'm guessing that Hattie and Elizabeth had different dads.
I think so. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So at the end of September, Elizabeth and Oscar decide to move in together. On September 30th, Elizabeth posted a photo of her and Oscar on Facebook. And in the photo, Oscar is wearing one of the masks that Elizabeth had sculpted. It was a long, thin, red devil face mask.
Okay.
And they compared it to I'm not familiar with Nightmare Before Christmas, but apparently There's a character in there that wears that mask.
Oh, interesting. I'm not that familiar with it either. So.
Oh, okay. Okay. On the afternoon of Sunday, October 25th, 31-year-old Elizabeth and Oscar, 23, got into an argument at their new home that they shared. In the home with Elizabeth and Oscar was 15-year-old Hattie, who also lived there. And Oscar also had family visiting from out of town, his 17-year-old sister and 15-year-old brother, who lived in Baton Rouge, and they came to spend the weekend with their older brother.
Okay.
No article had their names, probably because they were minors, even though they had Hattie's name. But
right.
So all five were at home and watching TV in the living room when Oscar and Elizabeth got into an argument. So Oscar got up from the couch and went into the couple's bedroom, and Elizabeth followed him in. And a moment later, Elizabeth came out of the bedroom in a hurry with Oscar just behind her. And he comes into the living room wearing that devil's mask.
Okay.
At first, the siblings are confused and they're not really sure what Oscar is doing. And they're thinking that possibly it was some kind of Halloween prank. But then they notice that he had two machetes and he starts slashing at Elizabeth.
Holy shit. In the living room in front of the rest of them? What the fuck?
Yeah. Oscar's younger brother and sister jump in and try and stop him, but he starts slashing at them too.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. Elizabeth is seriously wounded in a matter of seconds after being attacked with two massive machetes.
Yeah.
Oscar's younger sister was also seriously injured, and his younger brother, along with Hattie, ran out the front door. Oscar's brother tried to flag down a passing car while Hattie ran up the street to a neighbor's house. And one of the neighbors had their garage door open, so she went in and she knocked on the door that goes from the garage into the house. But before the homeowner came to the door, Oscar had caught up with her and he was in the garage.
Oh my God, this is like a fucking horror movie.
It gets so much worse.
Okay.
Oscar then starts attacking Hattie in the garage, and the homeowner was inside watching football when he heard a commotion. So he opened that door into the garage and saw Hattie being attacked, and he screamed at Oscar and asked him, "What the fuck are you doing?" And then Oscar started to go after the 63-year-old homeowner. So this guy is able to get back inside and shut the door and brace himself against the door while he yelled for his family to go upstairs and hide. Inside was his wife and their grandkids who were visiting for the weekend, who were ages 2 and 7.
Okay. Is anyone at any point calling 911?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Mm-hmm. He also told his wife to get his rifle. So the homeowner's on the other side of the door, and Oscar is banging and kicking the door and grunting.
Okay.
And at one point, the homeowner heard him going back to Hattie and continuing to attack her. And he heard Hattie say, "You're going to kill me." It just keeps getting worse. And I'm sorry.
Okay.
From where the homeowner was standing against that door, he had a direct line of sight out his living room window to the front of his property. And after hearing the noises in the garage subside, he then sees Oscar walking around to the front of his house.
Oh, no.
Okay. Major trigger warning here.
Oh, my God. Okay.
Oscar had taken parts of Hattie and placed them around his neck while he walked around the man's property. Like her insides.
Oh.
That he was wearing as a scarf.
I have no words.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Do you need a break?
No, keep going.
Okay. He also sees some of Hattie's body parts in his driveway. So the police arrive. Oscar was back in the garage when the police got there. He's covered in blood from head to toe. They ordered him to drop his machetes. They're able to take him into custody without incident. So The police were dispatched when the brother was able to successfully flag down a motorist who then called 911. And when officers got to the house, they immediately placed tourniquets on Elizabeth and on Oscar's younger sister in an attempt to stop the bleeding. They were both transported to the hospital where, unfortunately, Elizabeth died from her injuries.
Oh.
I know. Oscar's brother was treated for minor injuries. I believe that Oscar's sister also survived. They didn't definitively say that, but he ended up being charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder and 2 counts of attempted first-degree murder. And there are currently no updates on this case. The last known movement was a blood sample taken from Oscar after his arrest to determine if he was on drugs, as well as a mental health competency evaluation. There was no motive, no red flags, no forewarning, just completely fucking lost it.
He was 23.
23. Yeah.
Schizophrenia.
Maybe.
He's that age where it sets in.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, sister.
I'm sorry. It was short. That's all the information I could find. I am so sorry.
I literally don't have words.
I don't either.
This was 2020. This was like
yes,
a long time. This was like 3.5 years ago.
Huh?
And there's no updates on this.
Mm-mm.
Did you find him in the system?
Yeah, a lot of people, one of the things that was pointed out a lot, which is just, I don't know that it's relevant and it's annoying, is that he was from El Salvador and he was here illegally. And at one point he was picked up by immigration and then released. And so there's been a lot of like people just basically being shitheads and saying like, if they had completed the immigration, process according to law, like this wouldn't have happened. And, it's just like, I don't know.
But
and then
that doesn't account for him not going through, because even if he was here illegally, he would still be going through the process and serving his time. He would just be deported later.
Correct. And then, well, apparently he was picked up by immigration well before ever even meeting Elizabeth.
Right.
And then one source said that he had done a mental health evaluation, but they didn't send a Spanish speaker. And so the judge wouldn't allow it to be admitted. But then nothing in the story indicated that he needed an interpreter. So
right.
I'm not sure. There's just not very much information.
But you didn't find him like incarcerated. You didn't look into like Louisiana or whatever. Okay.
No.
Okay. Well, now you owe us an update.
Okay, I will. I'm going to keep an eye on that. Yeah.
Yes, please.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry.
Fuck, Amber. Jesus.
I'm sorry. But you know what?
Christ.
Now the floor is yours because you've got a beefy
Oh my God. I do. I don't know if I have. I mean, okay. Wow. Okay. Hold, please. I have to.
Mm-hmm.
I did one. Okay. Oh, all right. Let me just to one moment.
Okay, Uncle Buck. Would you
you know what? I jumped in and I forgot to do what I normally do, which is like prep my my windows properly here so that it's all like, good to go. And okay. And then
I just want to say as an aside while you're doing that.
No, as an aside, go ahead.
Long hair in this fucking heat feels like wearing a scarf or a turtleneck.
Because it is.
And it's so uncomfy.
You don't have to tell me.
Fucking hate it.
You're preaching to the choir about this.
I know. Like, why do I want to keep it like this?
Yeah, I mean, my solution to all that. All right, sister, today I am going to tell you about Charles Dederich Sr. Okay, who went by Chuck. And Chuck was born in 1913 in Toledo, Ohio. His alcoholic father died in a car crash when Chuck was 4. When Chuck was 8, his brother died. When he was 12, his mom, a classic concert singer, remarried a man that Chuck despised.
Oh.
Chuck's mom raised him as a devout Roman Catholic. He's been quoted as saying, "I believed literally that I would go to hell if I didn't go to church on Sundays."
Yikes.
At the age of 14, he read his stepdad's copy of H.G. Wells's The Outline of History, and he says he became a militant atheist almost overnight. It was very soon after that Chuck started drinking. Chuck was easily bored and didn't have any interest in learning or working. He dropped out of the University of Notre Dame about a year and a half into his college career because of poor grades and lost jobs. And of course, because of his drinking. By the time he turned 40, he was on his second divorce, and he moved west to Santa Monica, California. Chuck spoke in a growl, was overweight, and the right side of his bulldog face drooped from a near-fatal bout of meningitis at the age of 29. After 3 years of aimlessness on the California coast, at the age of 43, Chuck walked into his first Alcoholics Anonymous meeting.
Oh, good for him.
Partway through the meeting, Chuck marched his way up to the podium and started to share with the group, and Chuck had the whole room in the palm of his hand. They laughed, they applauded. Chuck was hooked. Now, just as an aside, California meetings are like just filthy with clapping. There's so much clapping going on in an AA or an NA meeting in California.
Why?
It's really weird. I don't know.
They're used to just like everything's a performance, or
I don't
like that?
know. I mean, they literally clap for everything. So anyway,
Good for them.
Chuck was hooked. He went from one AA meeting to another every night. That's all he did. He would be the first one to speak, and he would go on all night if they let him. So Chuck was sober in AA for about a year, doing that one day at a time life, when in 1957, he had a profound experience while tripping balls on LSD.
Oh, in his sober life?
Mm-hmm. Well, side note, Bill W., who is the co-founder of AA, in later years did a bunch of acid and thought that there was solutions there.
I mean,
there is something to be said about what Bill Hicks calls squeegeeing open your third eye. You know what I'm saying?
God, sure.
So after this LSD experience, Chuck started reading like crazy all about psychology and philosophy. In particular, he was quite taken with an essay by Ralph Waldo Emerson titled Self-Reliance, which asserts that truth lies within ourselves and is the real authority, not religions or institutions. Mm-hmm. Other influences of Chuck's worldview at this point would include B.F. Skinner, who is an American psychologist, behaviorist, and social philosopher, as well as Henry David Thoreau.
I remember Skinner. He did the Skinner box with the rats.
I don't know anything about that.
Okay, sorry. Carry on.
No, tell us about the Skinner box with the rats.
I think it's similar to Pavlov, but he was proving positive reinforcement, I believe.
Ah, there you go. Okay. Mm-hmm. So during this time, Chuck was on unemployment, bringing in $33 a week, and he started to taper off from his AA attendance. So when other members of AA started coming around to check on him, Chuck would pull them into impromptu meetings that were more like philosophy lectures mixed with combative group therapy.
This is like an extreme version of like, I need to stop by so-and-so's house, but I need to be prepared for my afternoon to be shot because they don't stop talking.
Right.
That's the worst.
So what started out as fellow recovering alcoholics having a visit with a friend turned into planned gatherings that happened 3 times a week. Then one day at one of these gatherings, a young heroin addict named Whitey Walker showed up, fresh out of prison. And he joined the group. And he started inviting his friends to come too, other dope addicts with harder backgrounds. The language at these gatherings got grittier. The crosstalk got more aggressive. Chuck fucking loved it. Mm-hmm. The sessions became known as Synanon, which some say is a combo of the words symposium and anonymous.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of Synanon?
Mm-mm.
Oh, now you will.
Oh.
Chuck started inviting heroin addicts who needed a place to get clean and had couches for them to crash on at his place. And he developed a belief that addicts were not full-fledged adults and shouldn't be treated as adults. Some of the younger addicts started calling him Dad.
Ugh.
Eventually, these gatherings got too big for Chuck's apartment to handle. So he found a commercial storefront building in Ocean Park that he could lease for $100 a month. That same year, 1958, Synanon was an official incorporated nonprofit. Chuck was so sure he was on the righteous path that he had created something as important as the alphabet that he predicted Synanon would be more famous than Coca-Cola.
Okay.
But the city of Ocean Park disagreed. City inspectors declared the building they had leased as failing to meet code and had it demolished. That's when Chuck found the old National Guard Armory building on the beach in Santa Monica and moved his roughly 65 members over there. The neighbors weren't too happy about it. 10 days after moving, Chuck and 3 other Synanon members were arrested for treating addicts without a license and operating a hospital in the residential zone. Chuck told reporters at the time, quote, "Apparently we started saving lives on the wrong side of town."
Okay.
He spent 25 days in jail. Over the next 10 years, Chuck and his organization, Synanon, would become media darlings. The LA Times ran a 2-part feature on the group. The LA Mirror ran a 4-part series. Life magazine had a 14-page photo spread hailing Synanon as, quote, "a tunnel back into the human race."
Okay.
Time magazine gave them a glowing write-up in which they printed Chuck's dubious claim that 80% of addicts treated by Synanon stayed clean. And reporters loved Chuck for his endless quotables. He told the New York Times, quote, "Crime is stupid, delinquency is stupid, and the use of narcotics is stupid. What Synanon is dealing with is addiction to stupidity."
Ugh.
Chuck is also credited with coining the phrase, "Today is the first day of the rest of your life."
Oh.
During this time, Synanon as an organization is growing tremendously. By the late 60s, they had at least 1,100 members and were receiving $2.5 million a year in donations.
What did like traditional or like OGAA think of Synanon at this time? Was
I
it
don't
like, what
know
the fuck?
if AA officially had anything to say about it. They weren't affiliated with AA. So, like, for example, NA was founded in 1953. It was the second 12-step group to form after AA. It was the very first, like, spinoff of AA. There's tons of them now. But one of the traditions in the 12 steps is, in the 12 traditions in 12-step groups, is to have no opinion on outside issues in order to not bring the name of the organization into any public controversy. So they wouldn't necessarily have a public stance on that. In some places, I read that Chuck believed that AA was too soft and also was creating a space for addicts because AA didn't have room for addicts. But that doesn't really track with the reality that NA started in 1953, a full 4 years before he started Synanon. And NA was specifically for addicts.
Right.
It's in the same area, too, in Southern California that NA started. So hard to say.
Gotcha. Okay.
So Synanon had $7 million worth of real estate in Santa Monica, West LA, San Diego. This was in that 10-year period. By the end of the 10-year period, $7 million worth of real estate in Santa Monica, West LA, San Diego, San Francisco, Tamales Bay, Reno, Detroit, New York City, and Puerto Rico. They also owned a number of gas stations and ran a $1 million a year specialty advertising business that sold pens and office supplies bearing the Synanon logo. Salesmen implored Fortune 500 companies to, quote, buy from Synanon and save a life. The primary operation of Synanon was still at that armory in Santa Monica during that 10-year period, which was basically a 2-year residential program, but their property in Oakland was also residential and running the Synanon program. Professionals and other non-addicts were invited to join Synanon, and many took them up on this offer. Friday nights in Santa Monica, they would have live jazz music, and the general public was invited to come and hang out and dance and have a good time. Ex-members talk about a general feeling of community and personal liberation that happened at Synanon. The dancing would be wild and free, even though no one was on drugs. Everyone was welcome, regardless of color or race or gender or age. There was definitely a bit of that like hippie, free love, new society vibe going on.
Mm-hmm.
The treatment program included cold turkey quitting of drugs upon entering. No medications, even medically prescribed ones, were permitted, and members were prohibited from having any communication or contact with the outside world for the first 90 days of their 2-year program.
Is that normal?
At this time, there wasn't really a normal.
Oh, okay.
But the core of the program was the Synanons, or the games, or what would eventually just be called the game, that they had to attend 3 times a week. This took the general concept of the 12-step meeting idea where everyone sat in a circle and shared their experience, strength, and hope, their personal story of addiction and recovery that evolved into those impromptu meetings Chuck used to have in his apartment with his fellow AAers, and put it on group therapy steroids. Members would share, but then the rest of the circle would harshly criticize the one who had shared, humiliate them, scream and yell at them, tear them down, point out their weaknesses, push them to confess more and deeper fears and secrets, what many now refer to as attack therapy.
Okay. Yikes. That's shitty.
If group members refused to participate, they would face punishment. While this treatment originally took the form of verbal and emotional abuse, as the program continued to grow, physical abuse became condoned as well. Outside of game sessions, Synanon members were required to be polite and civil with each other. However, inside these sessions, they were encouraged to use profane language and be as critical as possible of their friends and fellow community members.
Oh my God.
By 1968, Synanon revived its previous 2-year program length to be a lifetime of rehabilitation under the premise that addicts would never truly be able to be recovered enough to be functional members of society.
Okay. I see what he's doing here.
In response to taxation issue, Synanon rebranded itself as a religious organization known as the Church of Synanon. Synanon also revised its policies around its game sessions. They originally lasted up to 1 hour, but were increased to be allowed to last for up to 72 consecutive hours at a time.
Oh my God. Talk about trauma. Is there just one person that's the target while in a circle, or is it just everybody's attacking everybody?
I think it's one target at a time.
That's fucking awful. I mean, it's all awful, but my God.
And just for the record, they documented their shit like crazy. So there's tons of video footage of these sessions.
Oh my God.
This would be the origins in treatment and behavior modification known as tough love.
Mm-hmm.
Chuck started to require newcomers and women to shave their heads as a hazing or as punishment. This was also a moment of rebranding for the organization. Its focus moved from a 2-year program to the assertion that addiction could be treated only by keeping addicts within the fold. Synanon began to welcome non-addicts too, and Chuck suggested that he was, quote, getting out of the dope fiend business. He encouraged squares, which is what they called non-addicts, to join their community. Everyone could benefit from his methods. He also created the Punk Squad, a sort of boot camp devoted to disciplining juvenile delinquents sent to Synanon by their parents and the courts.
Mm-hmm.
And the organization began marketing the game as a new kind of therapy. Part of this marketing involved Chuck putting on weekend retreats that non-Synanon members would pay to attend. These retreats were called The Trip, which was referred to as a combination of group psychotherapy, mass hypnosis, and mysticism with a dash of old-fashioned spiritual revival. These weekend retreats would use experienced game players to turn on various trippers to force them to confess their tales of drugs, rape, crime, etc. These members would were pushed harder and harder to disclose more and more. After the day's sessions, these trippers were given homework that would keep them awake for most of the night in order to complete. This would leave them disoriented and sleep deprived for the next day's activities. If they completed the homework, this would also give the conductors of the trip ammunition to use in the game. Napping and sleep during this retreat were discouraged, so the fatigue would wear down the members' defenses. Music, guided meditation, sleep deprivation, and the game was used throughout the weekend retreat to break people down. These retreats were enormously successful for Synanon and netted over $500,000 in their second year of running them.
This is fucking torture.
A bunch of other treatment centers popped up around the country, founded by former members of Synanon as well. Some still operating today based on Chuck's brand of therapy. In fact, the processes used in those retreats were later duplicated and used in popular self-help training by groups such as Earhart Seminars Training, EST, LifeSpring, and troubled teen industry programs such as CEDU, the Worldwide Association of Specialty Programs, otherwise known as WASP, and various TTI spinoffs.
Mm-hmm.
One of the facilities Synanon built was in Marin County, around the old Marconi wireless radio station in Marshall. Much to the displeasure of locals, who were primarily working-class ranchers, hundreds of people moved in. They added an airstrip, firehouse, clinic, and school with the goal of being completely self-sufficient. At its height, half of Synanon's worldwide membership of 1,500 people lived in Marin County.
My God. An airstrip? Jesus, this is like Jonestown.
The remote 3,000-acre ranch soon became the center of some of Synanon's worst abuses. Children of the members were taken from their parents and sent to Marshall. It had been decided that the kids should go into the school at 7 months so that they wouldn't attach to their parents.
Oh, that's devastating.
Synanon children, about 250 at the peak of the organization, were housed in their own dormitories and nurtured communally by teachers known as demonstrators. Some of them, the children say, were wonderful and caring, while others were abusive ex-drug addicts and thieves. Beatings, verbal abuse, and intense physical labor were commonplace. The children did everything together. They were bused to town a couple times a year to shop, drew the rest of their possessions from communal bins, and as young as age 4, participated in the game.
No.
Because of Synanon's positive reputation with the general public, some juvenile court judges sent more children to the group for rehabilitation.
Oh, God.
As physical violence escalated at the facility, children began escaping. When they climbed over the hill, the first ranch they hit belonged to Alvin and Doris Gambonini. The Gamboninis were born and raised in the area, and they were well known and well loved in the community, often hosting dances in their barn. At first, the family had a cordial relationship with their Synanon neighbors, but that soon soured. When children reached the Gambonini farm, the family provided them with food, a phone to call loved ones, and money to buy bus tickets home. This infuriated the Synanon leadership, and they came for the Gamboninis. In the 70s, Synanon started pulling in middle-class people with the game. By the early 70s, some 3,400 squares, what Chuck called the non-addicts, in California, New York, and Detroit were paying good money to participate in the game. In 1974, Synanon was granted religious status by the feds, which gave Chuck twofold benefits: no more taxes and no more license requirements. This would, quote, eliminate a number of silly questions such as when do they graduate and why do they have to obey? Nobody graduates from a religion.
This is fucking terrible. Also, all along, like, where are the actual licensed doctors who are saying that this is a good are there any? That this is a good treatment form. This is good therapy. This is like...
Nobody is weighing in on this.
Oh my God, this is so scary that people can just fucking go rogue and... Okay.
They still can.
No, I know. It's terrifying. There's no regulations here. Mm-hmm.
By the end of 1976, Synanon had assets worth $22 million, with $8 billion in annual revenue coming largely from its specialty advertising division, as well as a mortgage business one member had donated and cash contributions from Squares. Synanon owned 5,500 acres of property, including the 6-story Del Mar Club in Santa Monica, a cluster of nearby apartment buildings, 3 large compounds in Marin County, and another in Badger, California, which also had an airstrip. Add to that a fleet of 200 cars, 400 motorcycles, 62 freight trucks, 20 boats, and 12 airplanes, along with $1 million invested in the stock market. By 1977, Chuck was drawing an annual salary of $100,000, which is roughly $400,000 in today's money, and received a $500,000 pre-retirement bonus.
Fuck.
Chuck told Time magazine that same year, quote, "A lot of guys could do this thing from an old Ford Roadster and sit on an orange crate. They're holy men. I'm not. I need a $17,000 Cadillac. Did you ever play King of the Mountain when you were a kid? I liked King of the Mountain. I won. I was there firstest with the mostest. I was the smartest. I was older than the rest of the guys. I won. The gang does not expect me to, well, let me say this terribly unforgivable thing that is true of all people in position. I am not bound by the rules. I make the rules in very peculiar ways."
Yikes. You know who that sounds like. We're not going to get into it.
Okay.
Sounds like somebody who's currently healing an ear injury. So much.
They're all cut from the same fucking cloth, aren't they?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So one of Chuck's rules, don't cross Charles Detterich. When the San Francisco Examiner called Synanon the racket of the century, the organization sued, forcing them to pay $600,000 and run a front page apology. Synanon later sued a local ABC station, which settled, and Time magazine, which called Synanon a kooky cult in that 1977 story. Reporters were threatened. Time's editor-in-chief was stopped outside his apartment by 2 men with shaved heads who told him, "We are going to ruin your life."
Whoa.
Yeah, they got a little bit of that Scientology in them.
Mm-hmm.
Chuck told a local TV reporter, quote, "I don't know what these people might do. I don't know what action they might take against the people responsible, their wives, their children. Bombs could be thrown into odd places, into the homes of some of the clowns who occupy high places in the Time organization."
God, this guy's fucking unhinged.
Synanon had a private security force and formed a paramilitary group, the Imperial Marines, that developed its own type of martial arts. They called it Syndo.
Stop it.
And by 1978 had amassed an arsenal of hundreds of guns. Quote, "We're concerned about the rising crime rate," a Synanon newsletter explained. "If trouble should occur, we're prepared to handle it."
Wow.
But Synanon brought its own crime. In 1975, 3 members admitted to assaulting Alvin Gambonini. Chuck hailed them as heroes. Another rancher was pistol whipped. In Santa Monica, Synanon members beat up 2 black couples who had parked their car at a Synanon apartment building. "Nonviolence," Chuck said at a press conference, quote, "was just a position. We can change positions anytime we want to."
Fuck you.
So Chuck would give these like endless monologue addresses to members over the wire, which was a lower power FM radio station. Very like Jim Jones.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Just rambling on and on all day, every day.
For hours.
Yes, making everybody listen to him. Mm-hmm. In one address in 1976, Chuck decreed that members should stop having kids, saying, quote, "I think children are a very bad investment." And the long rant revealed a deep contempt for his followers and how highly he thought of himself. Quote, "All the dummies, you, all of you all just sit there. And as this organization gets richer and fatter and more fun to be in and more powerful, you love that. But you're all alike. You sit there, mum, when I make these speeches. I have done exactly like the rest of the guys that run the world. I could have run a state, a country, a city. It doesn't make any difference. I'm one of those guys. I know that magic."
Yuck. This guy is such a fucking narcissist.
Oh, yeah. After the mandate of not having kids, women in Synanon were encouraged to have abortions. Many would later say it was more than encouragement. It was coercion through intimidation.
Uh-huh.
The men were pressured into having a vasectomy, and at least 80 were done in 1976.
Wow.
The men that refused were stuck in endless, ongoing, intense attack sessions. And as soon as they gave in, they would walk into the next room where doctors waited to perform the procedure.
Oh my God. That's fucking dark.
The general sentiment was if you didn't want to have one, you should pack up and leave.
Deuces. Bye.
Mm-hmm. Peace out. Chuck had a propensity for forcing his personal life on everyone else in the organization. In 1970, when he quit his 3-pack-a-day cigarette habit, he made everyone else quit smoking too.
Oh God, he's one of those.
I mean, that did save Synanon about $250,000 a year on cigarettes.
Sure. But sometimes ex-smokers are the worst.
The worst. At some point, Chuck started wearing overalls, and eventually so did everyone else. And the head shaving that had started as hazing or punishment turned into just the thing that everyone did.
Mm-hmm.
So now they're all like shaved heads and overalls.
Okay.
Chuck's third wife, Betty, had come to Synanon in the early days as an addict seeking recovery. And in 1977, she died. Chuck, now 64 years old, started drinking again.
Oh.
He also wanted a new wife immediately and put out the word that he was looking for his next wife. 6 women applied to be his wife.
Ew. Mm-hmm.
And Chuck chose Jenny, a 31-year-old teacher at one of the Synanon schools. Shortly after they married, Chuck decided that no marriage should be permanent. Couples were forced to split up and form new 3-year-long love matches. Within days, 230 couples had filed for divorce.
Oh my God. This guy. Okay.
Synanon was undeniably a cult by this point. Those that tried to leave or see their kids that were still in the cult with the other parent or said anything disparaging about the organization were subject to threats and in some cases real and brutal beatings. In mid-1978, NBC Nightly News produced a segment on the controversies surrounding Synanon. After it aired, several NBC executives, including the network's chairman, allegedly received hundreds of threats from Synanon supporters. On October 10th, 1978, 2 Synanon members placed a de-rattled rattlesnake in the mailbox of Paul Morantz, an attorney who had successfully brought a suit against the group on behalf of Synanon detainees. The snake bit Morantz, and he was hospitalized for 6 days. This incident, along with the press coverage, prompted a law enforcement investigation into Synanon. Paul Morantz had been pulled into the Synanon orbit by Ed Wynn, who had called Paul for help. Ed's wife, Frances, had a history of psychosis. When Ed noticed that she appeared to be on the verge of another episode, he planned to take her to a treatment center later after he returned from work. So before leaving, he told her to go to the Venice Family Clinic for a tranquilizer to hold her over. The clinic, however, suggested Frances go to Synanon.
No.
She went, thinking she was going in for a simple counseling session. But within minutes of walking through the door, she found herself being shorn by someone with an electric razor. She was screamed at as part of the game, told her husband didn't want her, that only Synanon could help. The next day, Frances was shipped by bus to a facility in Tamales Bay. This, she was told, was her new home.
Oh my God, that poor woman.
Ed had no idea. When he went to visit her thinking she was still in Santa Monica, he was informed that he couldn't see her for 90 days.
Oh, God.
The story really tugged at Paul, so he called one of his contacts at the Department of Public Health and asked what Synanon was licensed for.
Mm-hmm.
The voice on the other end of the phone dropped to a whisper. Synanon is not licensed.
Oh, sorry, it's not funny. My
No,
God.
Paul was like, how can it not be licensed?
Mm-hmm.
And the health official on the phone was all, we don't understand it either, and they don't let us in.
Fuck.
Apparently, back in the 60s, when Synanon was charged with running a hospital without a license, Governor Pat Brown signed a law clarifying that Chuck's brand of drug treatment wasn't medical care per se, so he didn't need a license. But the bill didn't specify anything about treating mental illness, which meant Synanon could be in trouble for taking in Frances. Paul pressured Synanon to release her. When he and Ed went to pick her up, they saw a sea of people with shaved heads and overalls, smiling. It gave Paul goosebumps.
It gave me goosebumps just hearing you say that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. Plastered smiles with their shaved head and over. I hate it.
6 weeks after the snake attack, the LA Police Department performed a search of the ranch in Badger, one of the Synanon properties, and found one of Chuck's recorded speeches where he said, quote, "We're not going to mess with the old time, turn the other cheek religious postures. Our religious posture is don't mess with us. You can get killed dead, literally dead. These are real threats. They are draining life's blood from us and expecting us to play by their silly rules. We will make the rules. I see nothing frightening about it. I am quite willing to break some lawyer's legs and next break his wife's legs and threaten to cut their child's arm off. That is the end of that lawyer. That is a very satisfactory, humane way of transmitting information. I really do want an ear and a glass of alcohol on my desk."
God, what the fuck? This guy has fucking lost it. Absolutely lost it.
Though many San Francisco area newspapers and broadcasters covered the Synanon case, most of them were silenced by Synanon lawyers who made claims of libel. These lawsuits ultimately turned out to be a large part of Synanon's undoing because this gave journalists access to Synanon's own internal documents disclosed through discovery. The real journalistic hero here was the Point Reyes Light, a weekly newspaper published by David Mitchell. The newspaper was headquartered in a tiny town 10 miles south of Marshall, where Synanon's main facility was located. The paper won out over Synanon on the basis of press freedom and protection issues, and its reporting was consummately professional. It won a $100,000 judgment against the cult, and in 1979, for its efforts, became the smallest paper ever to win a Pulitzer Prize.
Wow. Wow, that's incredible.
As a result of the snake attack, Chuck and two Synanon residents, Joe Musico and Lance Kenton, were arrested and pleaded no contest to charges of assault and conspiracy to commit murder. Lance Kenton was sentenced to a year in prison. Chuck, however, received a $10,000 fine and 5 years probation because his doctors claimed that due to ill health, he would most likely die in prison. As a condition of probation, Chuck was prohibited from taking part in managing Synanon.
Good. Maybe what he needs is just to stand in the circle and have people scream at him.
Right? When was the last time you played the game, Chuck?
No shit. God.
Synanon struggled to survive without its leader and also with a severely tarnished reputation. The IRS revoked the Synanon's tax-exempt status and ordered them to pay $17 million in back taxes.
Woo.
In the lengthy court battle that ensued, Paul provided hundreds of documents he'd unearthed that implicated Chuck and other Synanon officials in criminal acts. Those documents became the foundation of his book on Synanon, From Miracle to Madness. The court finally ruled against Synanon in 1984, finding that it had, quote, a, quote, policy of terror and violence and a practice of diverting corporate resources for the enrichment of individuals.
Wow.
Synanon declared bankruptcy and in 1991 formally dissolved, though a branch carries on in Germany.
Okay.
After being convicted, Chuck moved in with Ginny into a double-wide mobile home in Visalia. He died February 28th, 1997, a few weeks shy of its 84th birthday after a series of strokes. The cause of death was cardiorespiratory failure. He was saluted on the floor of the House of Representatives by Bay Area Congressman and future Oakland Mayor Ron Dellums. Quote, Dederich distinguished himself in the area of drug rehabilitation and amassed great wealth before his organization was associated with violence and tax problems. His approach to rehabilitating drug addicts has become a major paradigm for drug recovery in therapeutic communities the world over. The legacy of Charles Dederich and Synanon cannot be understated. The troubled teen industry alone brings in billions of dollars in profits. Much of its therapeutic methods, whether knowingly or not, are based off the game and the other practices within the Synanon cult. And again, whether knowingly or not, many other drug treatment facilities and self-help workshop programs like Landmark Forum, EST, and others also employ the brainwashing method of break them down to build them back up. That is the game. And really, the bread and butter of any successful cult. So while Chuck is dead and Synanon is gone, the impacts are still reverberating today and leaving countless traumatized people, even children, in its wake. That is Synanon.
Good God.
And that was like the most truncated version of that story. In fact, I've had this on my list for a long time to cover. And then I found out when I went to actually start doing the digging and start writing it up. So weird. There have been 2 docuseries done about Synanon within the last 9 months. One is on Paramount Plus, and I think it focuses mostly on the grown now children that had been in there. And there's another one that's on HBO that they did a 4-parter about the whole story of Synanon, Charles Detteridge.
Wow. Oh my God. The whole troubled teen industry is so upsetting to me.
Yeah, and it directly came from this. It directly came from Synanon.
It's so gross. It's so awful.
There's 2 different documentaries I watched recently on Netflix about the troubled teen industry. One is the camps, and the other one is focused on WASP, which is the schools. It's so bad.
It's so bad.
So bad. Plus, all these other these self-help Landmark Forum, those groups still exist. Estes does not, but Landmark Forum does. And they still use these same concepts to this day, because for that first 10 years before it was officially a cult, they were getting glowing fucking press. And there's famous people, actors and stuff associated in the early days with Synanon. And courts were sending kids there.
I hated that.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. This was kind really of, I mean, this was not a double Debbie Downer, but it's double dark.
Pretty dark. Yeah. Pretty dark. Yeah. There's a vibe happening. There's a mood hanging over us.
Oh, well, sister, we did it though. We did it. We made it through another episode. You guys, Chaos Kids, you know what to do. You know where we are. Go do all the things. Join the club. $5 a month on Patreon. Get you a bonus episode every month.
Gets your regular episodes a day early. Periodically, wine night,
virtual wine night. And, write us a review on your Apple product, on your Apple podcast. Rate us so people can find us. Tell your friends about us. And, sister, I love you, but that was so chaotic.
So chaotic. Goodbye.
Bye.
Crime, Wine, and Chaos is produced by 8th Direction Records. Artwork by Joshua M. Davis. Music by Paul Abner. If you would like to support the show, you can visit our Patreon page at crimewineandchaos.com/Patreon. Cheers!
There is something to be said about what Bill Hicks calls squeegeeing open your third eye. You know what I'm saying?
God.